Hi, friends. Remember, we learned about the first people who lived in America. They are called Native Americans. Can you remember some things that Native Americans did long, long ago? Native Americans hunted and fished, and they grew corn and pumpkins, peas, and beans. They made their houses out of logs and sticks, some leaves, and they made baskets out of straw and clothes out of skins and fur. Today, friends, we're going to listen and find out about some people who came to America long, long ago and they met the Native Americans. Let's find out who are those people who came to meet the Native Americans. But first, friends, I want to show you some pictures and some very important words we're going to hear in today's reading. As we learn about the people who met the Native Americans, we're going to be hearing some new words. One of our words is king. Can you say king? A king is a man who is in charge of his country and makes the rules that everyone must follow. We see the king here, and he has on a crown. This is the king. Can you say king? Good job. My friends, this is a ship. Can you say ship? A ship is a very large boat. This ship is sailing on the ocean. We know this is a Native American. These people look different than the Native Americans. They have on different clothes. These people are pilgrims. Can you say pilgrims? Pilgrims are the people who came on the ship from England to America. They didn't want to follow the king's rules. These are pilgrims. One more time, who are they? Pilgrims. Can you say Thanksgiving? Yeah, a lot of my friends already know what Thanksgiving is because it's a holiday that we celebrate. But long ago, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans shared food, and that was their Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving Day, my family eats turkey and pies and ham. Can you say Thanksgiving? Awesome. We have learned many words. These are new words. My friends say pilgrim, Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving. Now, my friends, let's listen to see what happened when the Native Americans met some new people. Long, long ago, long before your mother and your father were born, and even before your grandparents were born, there were people living in a country called England. In England, the king made all the rules. He made rules about what people could do and what they could not do. He even made rules about what church people should go to. My friends, remember, this is the king. Here is a man that's reading all of the rules. And here are the people who have to follow the rules. Do you think everybody likes following the rules? The king and his rules made some people so angry that they decided to go live somewhere else. The people who decided to move away from England were called pilgrims. The pilgrims decided they would move to America so they didn't have to follow the king's rules. Some of these people are called pilgrims. The pilgrims did not like the king's rules. They didn't want to live the way that the king told them to. They thought his rules were not fair. So they left the king and his rules and moved to America where they could do what they thought was fair. My friends, fair and unfair rules can mean things like it's fair if mommy says that you can eat your snack after you clean up. It is unfair if your brother or your sister gets a snack but you don't get a snack. The pilgrims thought it was unfair that the king was making them follow some of his rules. To get to America from England, they had to sail a long time across the Atlantic Ocean. They sailed on a boat named the Mayflower. Their journey was very hard. The ship rocked back and forth on the sea. A lot of people got sick. The pilgrims kept remembering that they were going to a new home where they could make their own rules. That made them feel better and kept them going. My friends, this is the ship. It's called the Mayflower. Can you say Mayflower? A long time ago, there were no airplanes, so people had to use boats and ships to go across the ocean. The ship is this great big boat. It sails on the sea or on the ocean. These are the sails. Sails catch the wind and have to move the boat away from England to America. There was no engine like in a car, so people on the ship had to wait until there was a lot of wind to move the boat. We could see the pilgrims kind of tiny on the boat. It took them a long time to get to America from England. Would you like to sail on this ship with the pilgrims? Finally, the pilgrims arrived in America. They were surprised at what they saw. They saw trees and forests and wild animals. Soon they met the people who lived in America, the Native Americans. Native Americans looked and dressed differently from the pilgrims, and they spoke a different language that the pilgrims could not understand. Remember, friends, Native Americans were already living in America before the pilgrims arrived. Native Americans knew lots of things about how to grow food and build houses where they lived. Who already lived in America, friends? Native Americans. Good job. One day, the pilgrims met a Native American man who knew how to speak English. He told them his name was Tisquantum, but people called him Squanto. Squanto became a special friend of the pilgrims. He taught them many things about how to live in America. He showed them how to use wood from the forest to build houses, and he gave them seeds to plant so they could grow corn and beans and pumpkins to eat. He showed them how to hunt for fish, and the pilgrims were grateful so Squanto for helping them learn to live in their new home. My friends, remember the pilgrims met this man who could speak English. His name was Tisquantum, but they called him Squanto. Squanto helped the pilgrims learn how to live in America and get food and build a house. These pilgrims had just came to America and they were afraid and they were hungry and they didn't know how to grow food in America or find food. So Squanto helped the pilgrims learn how to live in America. Squanto was a good friend. Squanto told the pilgrims that every year when it was time to harvest or collect the crops from the field, he and the other Native Americans had a celebration. After the harvest, the pilgrims and the Native Americans celebrated together. They roasted turkey, fish, and deer. They cooked corn, pumpkins, and beans. When they saw how much good food they had, they gave thanks together. The pilgrims also thanked the Native Americans for helping them make a home in America where they could follow their own rules and not the rules of the king. This pilgrim is saying thank you to Squanto for helping them learn how to live in America. Today, we celebrate the holiday of Thanksgiving. We remember the celebration the Pilgrims and Native Americans had long, long ago. On Thanksgiving, families and friends eat a meal together. It's very special. Lots of families eat turkey, corn, and beans just like the Pilgrims and Native Americans did. Americans celebrate Thanksgiving to remember all we have to be thankful for: the country we live in, the food that keeps us healthy and strong, and all the friends and families that help us feel safe in our homes. My friends, do you celebrate Thanksgiving with your family? What do you do? Do you eat a big meal? What favorite things do you eat? Friends, remember in our reading we heard the word pilgrims. I want you to listen for that word, pilgrims, and I'm going to read a part of the story you heard before. Long, long ago, there were people living in a country called England. In England, the king made all the rules. The king and his rules made some people angry, and they decided to go live somewhere else. The people who decided to move away from England were called pilgrims. The pilgrims decided they would move to America so they didn't have to follow the king's rules. My friends, remember this is the King of England. And some of those people did not like his rules, so they decided to leave. The people who left were called pilgrims. Can you say that again? My friends, say pilgrims. The pilgrims are the people who sailed away to America. They sailed on a ship. Remember that ship was called the Mayflower. When they left England to go to America, they got on the Mayflower. That's a big boat called a ship. Do you remember who did they meet when they got to America? Who did the pilgrims meet when they got to America? The Native Americans. And they met that man who was Native American. Do you remember his name? Squanto. Good job. Squanto was a really good friend who helped the pilgrims who came from England across the ocean on that ship. Now, friends, I have some pictures I want to show you. Remember in the story, it said that the Native Americans looked very different from the pilgrims. The pilgrims who came from England looked different from the Native Americans that they met. Native Americans, pilgrims, they look very different. Do you remember how did the Native Americans make their clothes? What were their clothes made out of? Skin and fur from animals. Good job. The pilgrims did not use skin and fur from animals, did they? They made their clothes out of cloth, like our clothes today. The pilgrims' clothes and the Native Americans' clothes looked very different from one another, but some of the clothes looked the same. There's a Native American man and a pilgrim that is a man. They both have on pants, and we see they have some shoes, and they both have long hair. And we see the women both have on dresses or skirts and shoes and kind of long sleeves. Which kind of clothing do you think you would like to wear, friends? Native American clothing or Indian? Native American clothing or pilgrim clothing? I would like to wear because. Tell us what kind of clothing you would like to wear.